What if after the fourth Great Ninja War, Naruto did not become Hokage, but instead was born in the world of High School DXD? And what if the devil feared him before they ever knew his name? The fourth Great Ninja War had finally ended. Madara was gone, Kage was sealed, and the world was finally at peace. But peace would never last forever. After the war, Naruto Uzumaki disappeared. No one knew where he went. Not Kakashi, not Sakura, not even Sasuke. Some believe he was traveling in the world. Others believe he had died protecting the balance of the Shinobi nation. But the truth was far more terrifying because the hero of the ninja world did not die. He was reborn in a completely different world. A world ruled by devils, angels, and fallen angels. And in that world, Naruto Uzumaki was no longer just a ninja. He was something far more digital. So hey guys, welcome back to our channel. And today we will see what if post 4th war Naruto High School DXD. If you enjoy this what if, then please like, share and do comment. And also check out our Patreon page. So let's start the story.
High above the illusionary grounds of Kuo Academy, the barrier shimmered like glass under pressure. Inside it, pride, blood, and ambition collided. Rias Gremory had imagined her first raiding game differently. Not like this. Not with smoke in her lungs and her most reckless pawn struggling to remain standing. Across the ruined courtyard stood Riser Phoenix. Unburned, unbroken, unbearably confident. His flames licked the air lazily, as if mocking the very idea of defeat. Beside him lingered his queen, Yubaluna, poised and calculating. And between them, Issei Hayadu knelt on one knee, armor cracked, boosted gear dimly pulsing against his arm. Riser laughed lightly, brushing ash from his sleeve. So this is the famous Red Dragon Emperor? He mused. How underwhelming. Issei coughed, blood staining the shattered stone beneath him. His vision blurred, but his eyes searched for only one person. Rias. She stood several meters back, breathing unevenly. Her peerage was already removed from the board. The game had narrowed to a cruel simplicity. Her pawn. His flames ignited again, this time not playful. A strike. Brutal. Direct. Issei was driven into the ground hard enough to fracture the courtyard tiles. The impact echoed against the barrier like a war drum. End it, Rias, Riser called casually. Forfeit and I'll stop. Issei pushed himself upright with trembling arms. His armor flickered. I'm not done, he rasped. His stubbornness had always been ridiculous. And yet, another flash of gold and crimson. Riser's hand pierced forward. There was a sickening stillness. Issei's breath hitched. Heat exploded outward, but it wasn't the flame that froze Rias. It was the expression on her pawn's face. Shock, pain, refusal. Riser withdrew his burning fist, leaving scorched air in its wake. Issei swayed once before collapsing, the game system already beginning to pull his body into emergency retrieval. Riser planted his heel against Issei's chest as the teleportation light swallowed him. Your move. Silence fell. In the observation chamber, Surzex Lucifer rose halfway from his seat. Graphia's composure fractured for a single heartbeat. Falbium's eyes widened. That energy spike. What is that? Seraphal leaned forward, frost creeping along her fingertips unconsciously. That isn't demonic power. On the battlefield, Rias did not hear them. She heard only the echo of Issei's fall. She had recruited him. She had promised him strength, protection, a future, and she had watched him be broken. Something inside her shifted, not shattered, shifted. Her aura flared crimson, but it did not behave like the power of destruction. It churned, twisted, darkened, The ground beneath her feet cracked outward in jagged lines. Riser frowned. What is this now? The barrier surrounding the false academy vibrated violently as a second pressure overlapped the first. Ancient, feral, unfamiliar. Rias's breathing slowed. Her eyes, normally a calm seafoam blue, bled into something deeper, something predatory. Her silhouette wavered, distorting at the edges. Her hair lifted as if caught in a storm that existed only around her. Energy surged outward in a spiral, black interwoven with violent crimson. The sky above fractured with thunder that had no clouds. From the observation room, control mages scrambled. We're losing synchronization with the game field. Withdraw Riser and his queen immediately. It's not responding. Seraphal's voice sharpened. Override the field. It's being suppressed, a technician cried. Whatever that energy is, it's overriding the system. Back below. Riser took a cautious step back. The girl standing before him still wore Rias's form, but her presence felt wrong. Her aura condensed tightly around her body, shaping into something primal. Shadows flickered at her back, elongating, splitting, forming multiple arcs that swayed like living extensions. Fox-like ears formed through the distortion of energy atop her head. For tails of condensed chakra-like force rippled behind her, cracking stone wherever they brushed. Her face was obscured beneath shifting darkness, except for two pale, circular lights where eyes should be, and a curved, unnatural grin that did not belong to any devil. Riser swallowed. That power. You're not even using demonic energy anymore. No answer. Only a low, vibrating growl that resonated from the ground itself. He signaled Eubeluna forward. The queen moved without hesitation, magic circles forming around her hands. She launched a precise barrage of spells aimed to immobilize rather than destroy. She never finished casting the third. Rias vanished, not with teleportation, with speed. She appeared directly before Eubeluna, too close, far too close. The queen's eyes widened. Rias's hand shot upward, not clawed, not elegant, raw. She seized Eubeluna by the throat and lifted her effortlessly from the ground. Magic circles shattered mid-formation. Riser stepped forward, flames surging higher. Release her. Rias tilted her head slowly. Then, she bit down. Not to kill, to dominate. Eubeluna screamed as energy flooded through her arm, burning yet cold at the same time. The chakra-like aura seeped into her veins, disrupting her magic. Rias released her abruptly. The queen collapsed, unconscious before she hit the ground. Riser's composure cracked for the first time. "What are you?" he demanded. The distorted grin widened. The four tails lashed violently, slamming into the courtyard and sending debris flying. The barrier trembled again, cracks spiderwebbing across its interior surface. In the observation room, Surzek's voice was dangerously quiet. "That is chakra." Graphia stiffened. "From the human world?" "No," Surzek said. "Something older." Back on the battlefield, Riser ignited fully, his phoenix flames roaring in defiance. "Regeneration. Immortality. I am not prey," he charged. Rias did not retreat. When their powers collided, the explosion tore through the artificial academy, ripping apart entire sections of the illusion. Flames met crimson-black chakra and detonated in a shockwave that shattered windows miles away inside the construct. For a moment, nothing could be seen through the smoke. Then, Riser was hurled across the field, crashing through what remained of the gymnasium facade. He regenerated instantly, rising again but slower. His flames flickered unevenly. Rias walked forward. Each step cracked the ground. Inside her mind, something stirred. Not a voice. Presence. Ancient. watching, waiting. The tails expanded further, a fifth outline beginning to shimmer faintly behind the others. In the control chamber, alarms blared. If that continues, one mage gasped, the barrier will collapse entirely. Seraphal's hands trembled. Evacuate all observers now. Riser stood his ground, fury overtaking fear. I will not lose to a malfunction. He launched a final, concentrated inferno, an all-consuming blast meant to overwhelm. Rias raised her hand. The chakra condensed into a sphere darker than night. The two forces collided, and the barrier cracked from top to bottom. For a split second, through the fracture in reality, something vast and fox-shaped flickered behind Rias's silhouette. Riser saw it. His confidence died. The explosion swallowed the courtyard. And as the barrier began to shatter completely, Rias's distorted eyes locked onto something far beyond the battlefield, beyond the raiding game, beyond Kuo, as if she had sensed another chakra signature awakening somewhere in the human world. Somewhere familiar. The fifth tail flared fully into existence, and the sky above split open. The false sky above Kuo trembled as rubble rained down like broken stars. Yubaluna's scream tore through the battlefield. What are you? Her voice ended in a violent crack as Rias's chakra-cloaked arm hurled her skyward. The queen's body twisted helplessly before slamming into the far wall with bone-shaking force. The impact left a crater spiderwebbing through reinforced stone. She did not rise again. Riser's confident smirk finally vanished. Before him stood something that wore Rias's shape, but moved like a predator unchained. For blazing tails lashed behind her, carving trenches into the courtyard. The distorted mask of chakra around her face stretched into that unnatural grin. She turned toward him and growled. The sound was not human. Riser ignited instantly, flames bursting around him as he took to the air. I refuse to be toyed with. Rias launched upward after him. She didn't fly. She leapt, rocketing skyward with explosive force. Midair, she twisted, and her tails whipped downward like living blades. They struck Riser and slammed him into the ground hard enough to crater the entire courtyard. The earth shook. Rias landed atop him before the dust cleared. Her foot came down on his abdomen. Once, twice, again. Each stomp cracked stone and forced the air from Riser's lungs. Phoenix flames flared desperately, trying to regenerate torn flesh, but her blows came faster than his body could recover. She bounced off him and descended in a blur of fists. Her strikes were wild, brutal, driven by emotion rather than technique. His face snapped side to side with each impact. Regeneration barely kept pace. In the observation chamber, alarms blared. One of the analysts shouted in panic, "His vitals are collapsing. At this rate, he won't regenerate in time." Surzek's Lucifer stood rigid, crimson eyes fixed on the screen. Prepare emergency intervention. Graphia's gloved hand tightened around her clipboard. If we breach the field now, she warned quietly, it may destabilize further. Another roar shook the arena. Back on the field, Rias's body trembled violently as she continued striking Riser, who now barely moved at all. Inside her mind, darkness. She was screaming, "Issei!"
His broken body replayed in her thoughts again and again, his stubborn smile, his refusal to surrender. Her fault, all of it her fault. Her chakra flared violently. The stroke clock around her body thickened, splinting and cracking as blue as red sables formed between her hands, rotating, grinding together under unbreakable pressure. They fused into a dense black orb. Riser, her voice tore raw for her throat. Die, that's enough. The voice was calm. First, it cut through the chaos like a blade through silk, The black orb flickered, Rias froze. A man stood several meters away as tough he had always been there. Blonde hair brushed his shoulder, tan skin marked by three whiskers like lines on each other, an orange long coat steered gently despite the wrangling between vines of chakra around her. His circular eyes were steady but aged, faded by something heavy. Stand down, he said. Eventually, he one strike from death. Riaz snarled and lunged without hesitation.
His broken body replayed in her thoughts again and again. His stubborn smile, his refusal to surrender. Her fault. All of it her fault. Her chakra flared violently. The distorted cloak around her body thickened, splitting and cracking as blue and red spheres formed between her hands. Rotating, grinding together under unbearable pressure. They fused into a dense black orb. Riser! Her voice tore raw from her throat. Die! That's enough. The voice was calm, firm, cut through the chaos like a blade through silk. The black orb flickered. Rias froze. A man stood several meters away as though he had always been there. Blonde hair brushed his shoulders. Tan skin marked by three whisker-like lines on each cheek. An orange long coat stirred gently despite the raging winds of chakra around her. His cerulean eyes were steady but aged, faded by something heavy. Stand down, he said evenly. He's one strike from death. Rias snarled and lunged without hesitation. Stay out of my way. Her fist shot toward his face, chakra screaming around it. It stopped. A small black sphere hovered between them, no larger than a marble. Her punch met it and went no further. The impact dissipated as if swallowed by emptiness. The man sighed softly. Orange pigmentation bloomed around his eyes in perfect rings. When he opened them again, the calm in his gaze had sharpened into something ancient. Close combat was never your specialty, he observed quietly. He raised one hand and flicked his wrist. Rias was launched backward like a ragdoll, crashing across the courtyard. She staggered upright, fury and grief twisting together. You don't understand, she screamed, tears leaking from beneath the chakra mask. He killed Issei. I have to. Her voice cracked. The man's expression shifted, not to anger, to something far heavier. Revenge won't bring him back, he said softly, and I won't let you destroy yourself chasing it. He stepped forward. The pressure in the air multiplied instantly. Rias felt it in her bones. Her chakra cloak trembled. As he took a second step, the skin of his forehead parted vertically. A red eye opened. Concentric black rings rippled outward from the pupil, marked by 9 tomo. The sheer presence of it made the remaining fragments of the barrier tremble. Calm yourself, he said gently. I'm not your enemy. Liar! She hurled the black orb at him. It struck his outstretched palm. A sun-like seal flared briefly on his skin. The orb vanished, not deflected, not blocked, erased. Her strength faltered. Her tails flickered. Her body trembled violently as instinct screamed at her to flee. But grief anchored her in place. The man watched carefully. Too much strain, he noted silently. The second stage transformation was tearing through her nervous system. Rias's knees buckled. The monstrous chakra cloak began to peel away in fragments. She collapsed to all fours, panting like a wounded animal. He approached slowly and knelt before her. She flinched, bracing for impact. Instead, a warm hand rested gently atop her head. It's over, he murmured. You've already won. The fury in her chest flickered uncertainly. I need to win, she whispered weakly. You did, he replied, offering a faint smile. But if you cross this line, Tomorrow will hurt worse than today. Her eyelids grew heavy. The chakra cloak unraveled completely, dissolving into particles of red and black light that flowed into his palm. Beneath it, her skin was torn. Blood stained her clothes. Burn marks covered her arms. He exhaled quietly. Now comes the difficult part. His third eye closed as green light gathered around his hands. He pressed his palm gently against her abdomen. Warmth spread instantly. Flesh knit. Skin regenerated. Her breathing steadied. "Who are you?" "Step away from Rias Gremory." The shout echoed across the battlefield. Naruto Uzumaki glanced over his shoulder, not pausing his healing. Surzek's Lucifer stood at the edge of the shattered barrier, power coiled tightly around him. Graphia Lucifuge remained beside him, icy aura poised to strike at a moment's notice. Several other high-ranking devils lingered behind them, tense and uncertain. Naruto's lips curved faintly. "Name's Naruto Uzumaki," he said casually, "and I'm exactly where I need to be." Surzek took a single step forward before raising a hand sharply. "Stand down," he commanded the others. Graphia hesitated but obeyed. Naruto finished sealing the last of Rias's wounds. Her breathing was now deep and stable. He rose slowly. Surzek studied him carefully. The blond man's chakra felt vast, ancient, familiar. Naruto met his gaze and tilted his head slightly. "Been a long time," he said quietly. His faded blue eyes held something unreadable. The air between them tightened. Surzek's composure faltered for half a heartbeat. "Naruto." The shattered remains of the barrier groaned above them. And far beyond Kuo, something else stirred in response to the chakra that had just been unleashed. Something watching, waiting, and now, awake. Smoke still drifted across the valley like a funeral veil. Charred beams jutted from the earth where homes once stood. The scent of burned wood mixed with something far heavier, loss. At the center of the devastation walked the leader of Kyoto's yokai. 9 golden tails swayed slowly behind her. Fox ears twitched at every distant crackle. Her shrine maiden robes, once pristine white and crimson, were dusted in ash. Miko did not allow herself to cry. Leaders did not have that luxury. "Another settlement erased," she murmured softly, her voice barely louder than the wind. "How long must we endure this? Humans." Their fear turned to hatred. Their hatred turned to fire. Behind her, hurried footsteps approached. "Lady Miko," a Tanuki yokai called, breathless as he bowed deeply. His fur was singed at the tips. She turned calmly. "Report. There are no survivors." His voice trembled despite his attempt at composure. "But something remains. Presence. It's unstable, powerful. We cannot locate it precisely." Miko closed her eyes briefly. "A lingering force in the ruins? I will investigate alone," she decided. "Return everyone to the capital. Secure the inner districts." The Tanuki hesitated. "My lady, you are..." Her hand gently rested over her abdomen. Flat, but not empty. "I will not endanger the successor," she said quietly. "You have your orders." He bowed deeply before vanishing into mist. Silence returned. Miko inhaled slowly. When she opened her eyes again, crimson light pulsed beneath her skin. Ancient markings spread across her arms and neck like living ink. Her pupils sharpened, red irises gleaming as nature energy gathered around her. Sage power. The world expanded. Every ember crackled louder. Every fading heartbeat in the forest whispered against her senses. And there, faint, fading, a signature unlike anything she had felt before. Yokai chakra, blended with natural energy, balanced, controlled. Her breath caught. That cannot be. She moved. The ground blurred beneath her feet as she followed the thinning presence deeper into the wreckage. Moments later, her ears caught something else. A cry. Weak. Infant. Her pace quickened instantly. Near the village center, one house still burned fiercely, flames devouring its upper floor. The cry came from within. Without hesitation, Miko formed a seal. Moisture condensed from the air, spiraling into torrents of water that crashed down over the structure. Steam exploded outward as flames hissed and died. She stepped inside the soaked ruin. The cries were louder upstairs. She ascended quickly, pushing aside collapsed beams. In the far corner of a smoke-blackened room, a baby lay on the floor, alone, unharmed, and glowing faintly. Miko froze. The presence she had sensed was not surrounding the child. It was emanating from him. As she approached, the fading natural energy condensed fully, drawing inward like a tide returning to the sea, until it vanished into the infant's small hands and stomach. The crying softened. "How?" she whispered. He was human. No horns, no tails, no spiritual signature of a yokai lineage. Yet the chakra radiating from him was refined, dense, balanced with senjutsu so naturally it felt instinctual. She knelt and gently lifted him. The child quieted immediately. Cerulean blue eyes blinked up at her, bright, curious, unaware of the destruction around him. Sun-kissed blonde hair clung lightly to his forehead. 3 faint whisker-like markings lined each cheek. As he babbled softly, tiny hands grasping at the air, Miko noticed markings upon them. On his right palm, a white circular seal. On his left, a black crescent. They pulsed faintly in rhythm with his chakra. "A conduit," she murmured. "Or a safeguard?" The infant giggled, as though this were all a game. She stepped outside into the ruined street, holding him close. No other bodies lay nearby. No sign of his parents. Only ash. After a long moment, Miko turned toward Kyoto. The manor of the Slug clan stood serene despite the chaos beyond the outer territories. Carved wooden pillars framed the entrance, each etched with spiral shell motifs. Miko approached and knocked once. The door slid open to reveal Shizune. Long black rabbit ears twitched in surprise. "Lady Miko?" Her gaze dropped to the child. "Is that?" "I need Tsunade," Miko said gently. Shizune stepped aside immediately. "Of course." Inside, the scent of medicinal herbs lingered in the air. Tsunade emerged from a side room, golden hair cascading over her shoulders. Her amber eyes narrowed when she saw the baby. "That's not yours," she stated bluntly. Miko allowed a faint smile. Very observant. Tsunade approached slowly, medical chakra already gathering at her fingertips. "Explain." "He was alone in the ruins," Miko replied. "Human, yet carrying yokai chakra intertwined with senjutsu. Perfectly harmonized." Tsunade stopped walking. "That's impossible." "I know." The slug leader extended her hands carefully. "May I?" Miko transferred the infant without resistance. The baby reached up immediately, grabbing Tsunade's finger and tugging with surprising strength. Tsunade's brows twitched. She activated her diagnostic technique. Green light enveloped the child. Her expression shifted from skepticism to shock. "There's no corruption," she muttered. "No possession. No foreign entity." She pressed her palm gently against his stomach. Natural energy responded calmly. It's circulating through him like blood. Shizune stepped closer, eyes wide. "But humans can't." "I know what humans can and cannot do," Tsunade snapped, though her gaze never left the infant. "And this child shouldn't be alive." The baby blinked up at her and smiled. as if amused by her certainty. Miko watched quietly. His seals? Tsunade asked. I suspect they regulate the flow, Miko answered. Perhaps prevent overload. Tsunade's jaw tightened. If humans discover this, she began. They will, Miko said softly. A heavy silence settled. The infant yawned. Tsunade deactivated her chakra slowly. He's stable, she admitted. In fact, he's healthier than most yokai children I've examined. Shizen swallowed. What will you do? Miko stepped forward and gently brushed the child's cheek. He grasped her finger instinctively. Her 9 tails shifted behind her, curling protectively. If left alone, she said quietly, he will be hunted. Tsunade studied her carefully. You're considering it. Miko nodded once. I will raise him. Shizen gasped softly. Tsunade's expression darkened. Not in anger, but in understanding. A human child within Kyoto's heart, Tsunade said slowly. The clans will resist. They always do, Miko replied. The baby's blue eyes flickered briefly. For a split second, they glowed faintly red. Both women stiffened. The glow vanished instantly. Tsunade frowned deeply. Did you see? Yes. Miko's ears twitched. Far beyond the capital walls, something stirred. Presence. Cold. Observing. It had felt the surge earlier. It was searching. Miko drew the child back into her arms, her expression hardening. He is not merely an anomaly, she murmured. The air in the room grew tense. Outside, the wind shifted direction. And somewhere in the distant mountains, a pair of ancient eyes opened. The manor of the Slug clan stood tranquil beneath the lantern-lit sky of Kyoto, untouched by the smoke that still lingered beyond the outer forests.
Sijan opened the door with practiced grace, long rabbit ears depicting respectfully, greeting Lady Miko. Miko inclined her head in return, careful to keep the infant balanced against her chest. It has been a while, Sijan. Is Tsunade available? I required her expertise. Sijan's eyes flickered toward the baby. Curiosity plain but controlled. Sage inside, please follow me. The halls of the manor carried the scent of herbs and polished wood. Miko walked steadily, her 9 tails moving in slow, thoughtful arcs behind her. The child rested quietly now, his small finger curled into the fabric of her sign robes as if he already understood safety. They entered a spacious study lit by wall lamps and cultured with scrolls. At its center sat Tsunade Sanjo. The slug queen leaned back in her chair, golden hair cascading over one shoulder, a bottle of sake tilted toward her lips. She swallowed deeply before exhaling with satisfaction. Humans may be insufferable, she muttered, examining the bottle, but they brew exceptional alcohol. Lady Tsunade, Sijan whispered mortified. Tsunade glanced up, larger than paused when she noticed Miko and the baby.
A slow smirk tugged at her lips. I didn't realize foxes delivered early these days. Miko's expression turned flat, though amusement flickered in her eyes. Your humor remains as refined as ever. Tsunade set the bottle aside and stood, approaching them with measured steps. That child doesn't carry your scent, she noted calmly, nor your chakra. He was found alone, Miko replied. In the southern village. The amusement vanished. Tsunade's gaze sharpened instantly. That village was wiped out, she said. Yes. Silence settled. Miko extended the child toward her. Tsunade accepted him carefully. experienced hands supporting his head and spine with instinctive precision. The baby blinked up at her, studying her face as if committing it to memory. Tsunade peeled back the cloth bundle slightly and froze. Etched faintly across the infant's stomach was a seal resembling a radiant sun. Not ink, not burned, embedded. It pulsed faintly beneath the skin. "What is this?" Tsunade murmured. She gathered a thread of medical chakra into her fingertips and gently pressed against the seal. The baby giggled. The sound was pure and bright in the heavy room. Tsunade's brow furrowed as her chakra flowed into him. Instead of resistance, it harmonized. Her energy didn't clash with his. It blended. "That's not possible," she whispered. Miko stepped closer. "There are more." She lifted the baby's tiny hands. On the right palm, a delicate white circle. On the left, a black crescent moon. Both symbols glowed faintly under Tsunade's scanning technique. Shizen stepped nearer, eyes wide. "Are those binding seals?" "No," Tsunade said slowly. "They're regulators." She increased the flow of chakra. Natural energy responded instantly, threading through the child's system like a second bloodstream. It was stable, balanced, perfect. "He's cycling senjutsu," Tsunade stated flatly. Shizun inhaled sharply. "But humans can't." "I know what humans can't do," Tsunade snapped automatically. Her eyes narrowed further as she focused. "There's no foreign entity inside him. No parasite. No yokai spirit attached." She pressed gently over his abdomen again. The sun-like seal shimmered faintly in response. "It's not containing something," Tsunade realized. "It's converting something." Miko's tail swayed slowly behind her. "When I arrived," she said quietly, "I sensed immense natural energy in the ruins. It faded and condensed into him." Tsunade's jaw tightened. "So whatever happened in that village," she muttered, "ended with this child absorbing the aftermath." The baby reached upward and grabbed Tsunade's finger with surprising strength. She blinked in mild surprise. "Strong grip," she muttered. Shizen leaned forward carefully. "Is he stable?" "For now." Tsunade's gaze darkened. "But if this seal fails, the backlash would level half of Kyoto." The room fell silent. Miko did not flinch. "Can it fail?" she asked. Tsunade examined the markings again, her medical instincts dissecting every detail. "Not easily," she admitted. "Whoever designed this knew exactly what they were doing." "That implies intention," Shizen whispered. "Yes," Tsunade replied grimly. "And I don't believe an infant crafted it." The baby's blue eyes shifted slightly in the lamplight. For a fleeting moment, a flicker of crimson passed through them. All three women saw it. The glow vanished instantly. The child simply blinked and cooed. Tsunade's hand stilled. "That," she said quietly, "was not senjutsu." Miko's ears twitched sharply. Outside the manor, a faint ripple passed through the air. A disturbance, brief but deliberate. Someone else had sensed him. Tsunade returned the baby to Miko slowly. "You're thinking of keeping him," she said, not as a question. "Yes. You realize the clan heads will object." "They object to everything," Miko replied calmly. "This is different," Tsunade warned. "He is human. And if word spreads that a human child carries yokai senjutsu within him, fear will follow." "Fear always follows power," Miko said softly. The infant yawned. His tiny hands flexed. For just a heartbeat, the sun seal on his stomach pulsed brighter, and the air pressure in the room dipped noticeably. The oil lamps flickered. Tsunade's eyes widened. "That wasn't triggered by us." Miko felt it too. Something far away had reacted. Not to the seal, but to the child himself. A presence vast and patient had shifted its attention toward Kyoto. Watching, measuring, waiting. Miko's expression hardened as she held the baby closer. "He will not be handed over to fear," she declared quietly. Tsunade met her gaze. "Then prepare," the Slug Queen said, "because whatever just noticed him isn't from any clan I recognize." Outside, high above the clouds, a massive shadow moved across the moon. The study remained quiet after the infant's brief flare of power. Shizun stared at the markings on his stomach with visible discomfort. "Who would carve symbols into their own child?" she asked, disturbed. "What kind of parent would do that?" "They are not carvings," Tsunade replied firmly. She brushed her fingers over the sun-shaped seal again, this time without channeling chakra. "It's woven into him, not ink, not branding, chakra structure." Her amber eyes sharpened. "Which makes it worse." Shizun leaned closer and inhaled softly. "He smells human." Miko nodded once. "He is." "That can't be right," Shizun insisted. "Only yokai and hanayo possess chakra coils. Without coils, chakra cannot circulate." "I am aware of that," Miko said calmly. "And yet when I found him, he was wrapped in a barrier formed from both yokai chakra and senjutsu." Tsunade crossed her arms slowly. "The word impossible has become useless tonight," she muttered. The baby shifted in Miko's arms, blinking up at them with innocent curiosity. Shizun's expression softened slightly. "What do you intend to do?" "I will raise him," Miko answered without hesitation. Her hand rested protectively over her abdomen again. "He will grow alongside my child." Tsunade's gaze narrowed. "You are not considering using him as leverage against humanity?" Miko's chakra flared sharp and hot for the briefest second. "No," she replied evenly. "But do not mistake restraint for forgiveness." The pressure in the room spiked unintentionally. The infant whimpered. Miko's aura vanished instantly. "Oh, no, no!" She gathered him close and rocked gently. "Forgive me, little one." The baby's small hands clutched her robes as his cries softened into tired sniffles. Soon he drifted to sleep. Shizun smiled faintly. "He trusts you already." Miko exhaled slowly. Tsunade studied them in silence for several seconds before stepping forward and extending her arms. "May I?" Carefully, and with some effort to free his tiny fists from Miko's robes, they transferred him to the Slug Queen. Tsunade held him close, staring down at the child's face. Blonde hair, blue eyes, 3 whisker-like marks. Her throat tightened. "I once had a grandson," she said quietly. "His name was Naruto Uzumaki." The room stilled. "He had hair like sunlight," Tsunade continued, voice lowering, "and eyes too bright for the world he was born into." Miko watched her teacher's composure waver. "He didn't get the life he deserved." The baby stirred slightly in Tsunade's arms. Miko stepped closer. "It would be an honor," she said gently, "if this child carried that name." Tsunade's eyes shimmered faintly. "Then Naruto he shall be." Shizun smiled softly.
After a thorough medical examination confirmed the child's stability, Miko carried him home beneath the lunt late night sky. Her husband waited at the entrance of the estate. Yoshimaru, Black Fox ear, flicked forward when he saw the bundle in her arms. "And who is this?" he asked contemptuously. Miko stepped inside. "This is Naruto," she replied. "I found him in the southern village." Yoshimaru eyes sobbed. "He smells human." "He is." He started at the sleeping child. "But I can feel chakra," he said quietly. "Strong chakra." Miko nodded. stronger than most adults. Yoshimaru studied her carefully. You intend to keep him? Yes. A long pause followed. The Yoshimaru sighed. If you have chosen this path, he said softly, then I will walk it with you. Miko tells, sweat gently in graduate. 5 years passed. Kyoto endured. The estate garden bloomed under warm sunlight. Miko stood on the veranda watching two small figures race across the yard. Her daughter Tamao, golden tails flirting as she loved freely, and beside her, Naruto. His hair had grown wilder with age, defying any attempt at control. His grin was constant, infectious, loud. He darted around Tamao with exaggerated movement, pretending to stumble so she could tag him. Miko's expression softened. The years had been complicated. When she returned to Kyoto with a human child in her arms, outrage followed. Some clan had demanded the infant be expelled. Others demand wars. Miko had silenced them with a calm authority. This is a step toward coexistence, she had declared. Some believed her, many did not. Then Tamao was born.
And tragedy struck. A hero faction incursion at the border forced Yoshimaru into battle, while Miko recovered from childbirth. He never returned. He bought time. He bought lives. He paid with his own. The resentment within Kyoto hardened after that. Whispers followed Naruto wherever he walked. A human among us. A threat to the princess. He will betray us. Miko closed her eyes briefly. She did not regret her decision. Not once. In the yard, Naruto tripped intentionally and rolled dramatically across the grass. Tamamo pounced victoriously, giggling. He laughed louder than she did. But beneath that laughter, Miko felt it. His chakra coils were fully developed. Abnormally so, though he had never displayed senjutsu since the day she found him. The capacity remained. Dormant, waiting. At 5 years old, his chakra reserves rivaled elite members of Kyoto's defense force. And yet, he had no idea. Naruto paused suddenly and looked up toward the veranda. Their eyes met. He waved enthusiastically. Miko forced a gentle smile and waved back. Behind her calm exterior, a quiet unease stirred, because sometimes, when Naruto thought no one was watching, his shadow moved a fraction too slowly behind him, and the air around him hummed, as if listening. Far beyond Kyoto's borders, something ancient shifted once more, and this time felt closer. The estate gardens shimmered beneath the afternoon sun. Tamamo darted across the pond's surface effortlessly, bare feet skimming the water as if it were solid glass. With a small leap, she flipped backward and landed halfway up a tree trunk. No hands, no hesitation. Chakra flowing smoothly beneath her soles. Naruto, by comparison, was upside down in a bush. "I almost had it," he protested, leaves stuck in his wild blonde hair. Tamamo giggled from her perch. Golden blonde hair glinted in the light, so much like her mother's. Even at 5, her chakra control was precise, refined in a way that spoke of natural talent and disciplined teaching. Miko watched from the veranda, 9 tails swaying thoughtfully. Tamamo excelled in both magic and chakra arts. Naruto possessed oceans of power, but held it like a child clutching too much water in his hands. "Come on, Tamamo, that's not fair," Naruto shouted as he lunged forward and tagged her sleeve, only for her to vanish in a puff of smoke. A clone. The real Tamamo appeared behind him, poking his back. "No rule says I can't use clones." Naruto spun around, missing again as she skipped away laughing. Miko allowed herself a quiet smile. Different strengths, different paths. I am proud of them both, she murmured. After several more minutes, she clapped her hands. That is enough. Tamamo straightened instantly. Naruto groaned, knowing what came next. Tamamo would continue refining her techniques. Naruto would repeat control exercises. He forced a grin anyway and waved at Tamamo before heading toward the slug sector. The whispers followed him as always. Human. Too much chakra. He doesn't belong. Naruto kept walking. He had long ago learned to let words pass through him. Still, sometimes late at night, he wondered why he had survived when no one else in that village had. Shizune opened the door before he could knock twice. Naruto, she beamed. Kneeling to pull him into a tight hug, he laughed into her shoulder. It's good to be back. She ruffled his hair. Lady Tsunade is in the training field. Let's not keep her waiting. As they walked, Shizune felt it again. That vast, humming chakra brushing faintly against her own. Over the years, she and Tsunade had monitored him carefully. The seals remained stable. His health was flawless. But every year on October 10th, his chakra changed. Year 1, Tanuki-like. Year 2, feline. Year 3, turtle. Year 4, monkey. Year 5, horse. And this past year, slug. Each transformation subtle. Each lasting only hours. Naruto never noticed, but they did, and it unsettled them deeply. Tsunade stood beneath a tall tree when Naruto arrived. Late again? She teased. I wasn't late, he protested. Moments later, he was flat on his back after failing another attempt at tree climbing. Tsunade caught him mid-fall with practiced ease. You're using too much, she said. Chakra isn't about force. Naruto pouted. Meanwhile, in Miko's chambers, tea steamed gently between her and Jiraiya. The toad sage leaned back comfortably, long white hair draped over his shoulders. So, he began casually, how's the kid doing? Miko exhaled slowly. Slow progress. Slow, Jiraiya repeated thoughtfully. Or restrained. She didn't answer. He studied her. You're training him like a soldier. I am preparing him, she corrected. For what? Silence. You say you don't want him to be a weapon, Jiraiya continued evenly. But you push him harder than Tamamo. Miko's gaze hardened. He carries power beyond comprehension. And he's 6, Jiraiya replied. Before she could respond, both sages froze. Nature energy shifted violently. It was being drawn, concentrated, pulled to a single location. Tsunade's manor. Miko didn't hesitate. She leapt through the open window. Jiraiya followed. The training grounds were in ruins. Bodies littered the area, devils and yokai alike. Tsunade knelt on one knee, blood staining her robes. Shizune hovered beside her, healing frantic wounds. At the center, Naruto stood. Orange pigmentation ringed his eyes. His irises had turned pale yellow. His pupils stretched into horizontal bars. Nature energy wrapped around him. Not chaotic, not unstable, perfectly balanced. Sage mode, 6 years old. Mom, he whispered, voice trembling. Miko rushed forward, but slowed when she felt the density of the senjutsu radiating from him. What happened? She demanded. Shizune swallowed. They appeared without warning. They wanted him, Tsunade said hoarsely. We fought them off. But when I was struck, her voice faltered. Naruto's lip trembled. I saw Granny Tsunade get hurt, he said softly. Then I felt warm and fuzzy, and then nothing. The nature energy flickered, faded. His eyes returned to blue. He collapsed forward into Miko's arms. Her heart pounded. The power she felt now dwarfed what she had sensed when she first found him. It had answered his fear, his desperation. It had protected. But at what cost? That night, Tamamo refused to leave his side. She curled beside him on the futon, 9 golden tails wrapping around both of them protectively. Even in sleep, her ears drooped in worry. Miko watched from the doorway. Then she turned away. In her study, she sat alone. The room felt colder than usual. What do I want for him? He was strong, but only when cornered. Only when something he loved was threatened. That power responded to emotion, not discipline. Her breath slowed. A realization settled heavily in her chest. If his strength awakened only through fear, then every danger around him would draw it out further. Every attack, every injury, every loss. Her hands trembled slightly. Am I protecting him, or creating the very battlefield that forces him to awaken? Self-loathing crept quietly into her expression. Outside, clouds drifted across the moon, and far beyond Kyoto's borders, a cloaked figure stood atop a mountain ridge, watching the capital's distant glow. Confirmed, a voice whispered into the night. The child can access sage power. A second presence shifted in the darkness. Then Phase 2 begins.
2 years later, again, Naruto is 8 and covered in the bruises, and Kurtz looked up terrified at Miko as she looked down at him, a silent, sitting anger behind her eyes. His stomach hurt more from just being hit, and his eyes filled with fear and tears, as he could feel the wrath-filled chakra inside Miko. Lady Miko, I believe the boy has had enough training for the day. Jiraiya interrupted sternly. This type of training is too much for a mere 8-year-old human. Ever since Tsunade, Naruto, and Shizen were attacked, Jiraiya had not gone on any journey to keep an eye off Naruto. He would help train Naruto, who took a great liking to Jiraiya, calling him pervasive, much to Jiraiya's dislike. However, most of Naruto training came from Miko. He's fine. Miko growled at the toad. Now stand up and assume the stance against Naruto. Trembling, Naruto stood up, doing as his mother teacher told him to do, but his legs and arms were sagging as he stood before her. Stop sagging, Miko nearly shouted. You are a human who can use chakra. You can't be acting like a scared child. But that is what he is. Jiraiya snapped, getting tired of this. Naruto, come with me now. Jiraiya, Miko started to say before the master toad says, grabbed the blonde boy and vanished. Miko clenched her hand before unclenching them, tensed, leaving her body as she exhaled and left to her room. Once her door was shut, Miko fell to her knees and started crying. I am doing this for his own good, she thought as she hiccuped. He need to strong. Naruto is strong, but he can't use the power easily. Despite all that I put him through, why does not he call on that power? Outside the door, Tamao listened to her mother cry with her ears lying flat against her head. She too had been training alongside Naruto, but her training was not bad as Naruto.
For the last 2 years, Tamamo had to watch as her mother pushed Naruto hard, sometimes yelling at him to reveal his power. What power has her this worked up? Tamamo wondered before she left to go to Tsunade for her medical training. She arrived to see Jiraiya there with Shizune as Tsunade healed a trembling and crying Naruto. Tamamo walked over, and when he saw her, he flinched. "Naru?" Tamamo asked. Saddened, he moved from her. Naruto's eyes were wide and scared. "It's okay, Naruto," Shizune said soothingly. "It's just Tamamo." Naruto looked up again and saw it was indeed Tamamo. "Tama?" he asked timidly. "Naru." The young kitsune embraced her friend as he started to cry in her arms. Seeing that he was healed, Tsunade and Jiraiya left the children and Tamamo's training in Shizune's hands for the day as they went upstairs to talk. "It's getting out of hand," Jiraiya stated as he and Tsunade poured sake. "I know that," Tsunade answered. "I heal his wounds every day. Lady Miko trains him." "But why does she do this?" Jiraiya nearly shouted. "She has no reason to do this to him. He is nothing but a child, yet the exercises she uses are meant for adults. Is she trying to kill him?" "I don't know," Tsunade answered honestly. "Miko and I have best friends for decades. She loved humans at one point, Yashimaru especially interested in their culture. He loved Naruto just as much as Miko does, but he was taken too soon when Tamamo was born." Jiraiya sighed as he looked down in the courtyard as Tamamo was mimicking Shizune in her healing chakra skills with Naruto nearby watching in amazement. "Tamamo seems to care for him?" Tsunade stated when she watched the small kitsune cheer when she healed a small bird. "Exceptional skills in healing to boot. I think they will make a perfect couple." "Don't get too excited," Jiraiya replied seriously. "He won't be around for long." "What does?" Tsunade started before it dawned on her. "You are going to kill him?" "No, I'm taking him away from here," Jiraiya replied, tilting his head to let Tsunade's fist bury into the wall. "Are you out of your mind?" Tsunade shouted, her healing mucus splashing from her. "Miko will not allow that at all, and if you just take him, you will be considered a traitor." Jiraiya looked into the Slug Queen's eyes. "What Miko is doing will eventually kill him, or worse, make him so angry that he unleashes the power you saw on her and the yokai faction. I don't care if I am seen as a traitor, as long as my student is safe and trained with love and care. I couldn't give a fuck with what Miko or anyone else thinks." Tsunade removed her fist from the wall and sat down again against the window. "I don't like this at all," she stated sadly, her eyes tearing up as memories over the last 8 years flooded her mind. He was nothing but a troublesome baby, always crying, needing attention. She wiped her eyes of the liquid. "I love him so much, and it pains me to see him when he is training with Miko." Tsunade turned to her fellow clan leader. "You best take care of him, Jiraiya." "I promise you I will," Jiraiya stated as he poured more sake. "He will become strong under my care." That night, capital, Naruto tossed and turned on his bed, unable to sleep. His breathing was uneven and his body overheated. He could hear his heart beat clearly as he focused on trying to go to sleep, which was evading him. "Why?" he thought as he looked out his window, seeing the moon. "Why does Mom hate me so much? Is it because I'm human?" He bolted up when he heard a knock on his door. Composing himself, Naruto walked over and opened it to see Tamamo standing there in the same sleeping yukata as him, sliding different colors, holding a stuffed animal, which was a slug. "Naru, can I sleep here tonight?" Tamamo asked shyly. "But Lady Miko said." Tamamo bolted forward and held him tightly. "Please," she choked. "I don't want to be left alone right now." Naruto was confused and scared. Miko had forbid him from being near Tamamo at night. Naruto sighed and held Tamamo. Like her mother, Tamamo had a connection to the ley lines, an ancient power that spread throughout Kyoto, and each destined ruler of Kyoto had a strong connection to it. Through these lines connected the senjutsu into the leader when necessary. However, Tamamo had such a strong connection to the ley lines She had the power to sense emotions, and currently she was being overpowered by them again. Recently, lots of humans, devils, and fallen angels have been attacking their borders and kidnapping yokai. Tamamo could feel the anger in the survivors and their sadness. Her violet eyes widened in fear before she closed them and pressed herself against Naruto's body, her face in his neck as she cried harder. Naruto wrapped his arms around the crying princess. Her fluffy tails bunched around his and her waist as he shut the door and shuffled over to the bed, where she clung to him, crying. Having her near him, soothing whatever was bothering him as the two children were sound asleep, covered in Tamamo's golden tails. However, this peace was destroyed when Miko took Naruto away the next morning, and he was hurt yet again by Miko trying to force him to reveal his power. Jiraiya, Tsunade watched in silent anger as Miko punched Naruto hard in the stomach, causing a mix of blood and vomit to erupt from his mouth as Miko went for a second. "Stop!" Miko stopped with wide eyes as Tamamo stood in front of her, arms out with her tails trembling behind her over Naruto's tired and hurt form. "Tamamo," Miko stated as she stood up straight and looked at her daughter. "Move aside. I'll get to training you in a few minutes." "No!" Tamamo yelled. "You will stop hurting him now. Step aside, Tamamo." Miko growled, not in the mood to play around. Tamamo entered the stance her mother had taught her. Miko's eyes slanted before they widened, and she activated her senjutsu form, with the red tattoos littering her skin and her eyes becoming red. Her senjutsu flooded the room. Tamamo nearly buckled under the pressure her mother released. Her body wanted to drop and submit, but her will kept her standing. "Step aside, now," Miko stated slowly as she glared at her children, her daughter barely able to stand while her friend weakly hid under Tamamo's tails. The room was flooded with more senjutsu as Tsunade and Jiraiya stepped forward. Jiraiya's body looked more toad-like, his nose being bigger and his eyes having toad pupils. Tsunade's body was covered in black marking coming from the jewel on her forehead. "Stand down now, Miko," Tsunade ordered. Miko knew a fight between her and one of them she would most likely win thanks to her connection to the ley lines. But if she fought both of them, she would have a hard time and possibly all of Kyoto would be destroyed, leaving the yokai vulnerable. Inhaling, then exhaling, Miko exited her senjutsu, as did Jiraiya and Tsunade, who turned to the children and ushered them outside to check them over and heal them. "I see this is your choice," Jiraiya stated as he and the leader of Kyoto stared at each other. "I see that means that I have to do what I had planned." "What are you talking about?" Miko asked, not liking what Jiraiya was saying. "I will be taking a trip," Jiraiya stated, "and Naruto will be coming with me to train for the journey." "Out of the question," Miko stated. "He is to remain here for his training under me. Take your precious trip, but Naruto stays out of it." Both re-entered senjutsu. Neither one held anything back. Courtyard. All of Kyoto, for the second time that day, felt Miko's senjutsu and Jiraiya's senjutsu, but instead of being calm, they were filled with rage, and then one was silenced. Naruto ran up and opened the door to see his teacher on the floor, his arm missing, and several stab wounds in his torso as his blood spread across the floor. Miko turned and her eyes widened when she felt nature energy be pulled to the child as he looked on in horror at what his mother figure had done. Naruto's eyes filled with tears and he gripped his chest. His heart hurt, not physically, but emotionally, as his eyes became toad-like, and then he looked tearfully at Miko as she turned, realizing what she had done and forced him to see. "Ark!" Naruto screamed and gripped his head. He saw visions of 6 orange-haired men with ripple-pattern eyes standing over Jiraiya, similar wounds on him as he did now. Naruto felt a hand on his head and looked up and saw Jiraiya, covered in blood, smiling at him. The intake of nature energy slowed and stemmed as Naruto registered that Jiraiya was alive and hugged his master. Miko stood by as Shizune and Tsunade entered the room and took Jiraiya away, leaving Naruto with Miko. Naruto, I hate you. Miko stepped back at this outburst. Naruto was still overflowing with senjutsu as he tearfully glared at Miko. Don't talk to me again. You are not my family. He yelled before storming off, following the two clan heads. Miko's eyes widened as it dawned upon her what she had done was something she would never be forgiven for. What have I done? She thought as she fell to her knees, grasping her head while tears flooded her eyes. Skip 9 years. War. That is what the human world, and thus the yokai world, had been subjected to the last 3 years. The faction war was in full swing, all sides, devils, angels, fallen angels, and now the yokai faction the last month had lost many lives and the human world was suffering. Humans fled their homes as their battles ravaged the land and boiled the seas. Miko led her people alongside the yokai clan heads and heads of all other monster/yokai clan heads from all over the world, and right beside Jiraiya and Tsunade stood Naruto, age 17. He was one of 3 leaders of his squad, Lukoa the Quetzalcoatl and Sun Wukong, the great sage equal to heaven. They were one of the strongest groups under the leadership of those 3. 1-2. Naruto had gotten strong and Miko was impressed by his mastery over his senjutsu thanks to Jiraiya. Jiraiya, now crippled due to his spinal cord being severed, could not take his trip and had to leave it to one of his spies. Though he did teach Naruto everything he could about senjutsu, but techniques were out of the question. Though Naruto had a natural affinity with senjutsu, so Jiraiya had little to teach, but he was still very proud. Many more battles burned the human world, the factions making a ceasefire to deal with a pesky white and red dragon fighting. But then the war resumed and Naruto was constantly outmatched. Yes, he was a master of senjutsu, but his body was still human. Currently, it was a break period between all factions, a 1-week truce to heal as much as possible and then fight again. Damn it! Naruto shouted as he fell off his bed, clutching his head. His body covered in bandages. His head felt like something was trying to surface, and he could vaguely hear voices, 9 in total trying to call out to him but always falling short. And memories of a person of the same name as him. They were like the voices, vague and never clear, but they hurt him emotionally. Naruto had lost many friends during the war and it was starting to take its toll on him on top of his current turmoil. Whoever is fucking with me shall pay. Naruto thought angrily as he stood up to get back on his bed when the door opened. I said I don't need healing. Get the fuck out. He shouted aggressively, not wanting to be near anyone. It's been a long time, Naru. Naruto's eyes widened as he turned his wounded head to see Tamamo standing before him. Beautiful, he whispered as he gazed upon his childhood friend. Tamamo had filled out modestly for a 17-year-old kitsune. Her hair was cut very short and she wore a very simple yukata. Thank you, Naru. Tamamo giggled with a blush. You've gotten very handsome yourself. Naruto blushed in response as he sat on his bed. What brought you here? He asked before wincing as his broken rib pinched him with pain. Tamamo became serious and walked over, her hands glowing green with healing chakra, and soon she healed his body and started to remove the bandages. I was very sad when you never returned, Tamamo said as she unwrapped the bandages. When Jiraiya was healing, Naruto refused to see Miko or Tamamo. Tamamo was most affected by this, and her training with her mother stopped altogether as Tsunade trained the successor to the yokai throne in healing and her own special jutsu. I'm sorry, Naruto said somberly. Tamamo leaned in and wrapped her arms around his bare chest. I understand, Tamamo muttered. Mother made you very angry, and in turn you took it out on me as well. Please forgive me, Naruto asked as he touched Tamamo's hand. Tamamo shifted, her head directly behind Naruto's, causing her breasts to touch Naruto's back, her breath hitting his neck, making him feel aroused. Naru! Naruto turned and was met with her lips on his. Excitement ran through the two teens as they kissed, and soon Naruto had Tamamo on her back, still kissing her. As his hands slipped down and undid her sash that held her yukata on her body, Naruto pulled back and looked at Tamamo. "Are we really doing this?" he asked worriedly. "My heat is approaching, so why not get it out of the way now?" Tamamo whispered seductively as she wrapped her arms around Naruto's head and pulled him back to her lips, her violet eyes closed. Naruto shifted and gripped her breasts, making Tamamo moan into his mouth and squealed when he grazed her nipples, letting her tongue out of her mouth to let Naruto latch onto and suck the saliva off her tongue. Tamamo's body shivered as bolts of pleasurable electricity run through her body as he sucked her tongue and played with her breasts, which made her vagina start to quiver as it prepared itself for what was to come. Naruto released her tongue and then was pushed on his back by Tamamo, her body drooling sexual pheromones and her eyes glowing a light pink as her pussy leaked juices. Her heat had been triggered. Her eyes held lust and her smile was seductive and wild as she ripped Naruto's tented boxers off and aligned herself to his dick, which was erect and ready. Before Naruto could do anything, he felt his dick get engulfed in a moist vice grip from the tip to the base, and the scent of blood lingered in the air as Tamamo gasped in pleasure, leaning back, causing her breasts to be pushed upward, her nipples erect and wanting to be sucked. Naruto gripped Tamamo's hips and supported her weight and looked up when Tamamo leaned forward. However, this pleasurable bliss did not last long as they were inexperienced with sex. Thus they came early.
Tamao panted as she held on to Naruto, both covered in sweat. "I love you, Naru," Tamao whispered kindly, her nails swaying gently as her ears twist as she listened to Naruto's heartbeat. "I love you too, Tama," Naruto responded happily as they fall asleep. Wukong, Lukao, Jiraiya, Tsunade, and Shijen cried tears of happiness when they saw Tamao with Naruto the next day, happy to see them again. Shijen and Tsunade even more as Tamao had a special glow about her and her skin changed. The rest of the week for the two teens was mostly sex due to Tamao heat cycle still in progress, but they caught up on the year lost Naruto had spent separated from Tamao at the end of the week, and the end of Tamao heat. Naruto held her close. Tamao, Naruto said, getting her attention from her full name being used and his tone. "I want you to go back to the capital." Tamao's face became a frown. "Why?" Naruto chuckled and touched her stomach. "I don't want the both of you getting hurt. Your was killed." Tamao's eyes winded and touched her belly, channeling senjutsu and focused. Her eyes filled with happy tears as she felt the faintest sign of infect chakra growing Naruto. Naruto was flown back as Tamao kissed him.
Naruto was flown back as Tamamo kissed him. They smiled happily, and the next day, Tamamo returned to the capital, not telling Miko. The next day, when the war resumed, 666 arrived. The factions were overpowered like an infant fighting Mike Tyson. And that is where we find ourselves now. The hulking creature towered over many of the faction members. God had to leave trying to find a way to stop it, while Michael was left in charge of the angels. Naruto, in his senjutsu Wukong, and Lukoa led their segment of the yokai faction against 666 and the fellow faction members against 666. Most of their men were lost and Naruto had been knocked back, his leg broken. Lukoa transformed into her giant feathered dragon form and slammed into 666, wrapping herself around its body while Wukong became a giant, multi-armed version of himself and proceeded to attack, but failed as 666 broke free of Lukoa's hold and used her serpentine form as a whip and sent the two deities flying, forcing them to revert back to their human forms. 666 roared and was about to move on when it saw Naruto moving, his fear pungent as he struggled to move. Naruto closed his eyes as he awaited death when he watched 666 move closer to him. "I'm so sorry, Tama. I'm sorry that I couldn't be there for our child," he thought as he made peace. His eyes opened when he felt warm liquid splash over his body. Naruto's pupils dilated to the point that they nearly vanished. There, impaled on 660's claws, preventing them from going any further near him, was Miko in Senjutsu mode. 666 removed its fingers from her body and moved elsewhere, leaving the woman to collapse onto Naruto. "Miko!" Naruto shouted as he propped her up, blood gushing out of her wounds. Miko's glazed violet eyes moved to look at Naruto and she weakly smiled. I'm sorry," she muttered before going limp. Naruto sensed her chakra flow completely stop. She was dead. Wukong, Lukoa, and any of the surviving yokai, devils, fallen angels, and angels nearby heard his cries of anguish as he held the woman who spared him death as an infant, and when they arrived Naruto was unconscious, holding Miko, covered in blood, his eyes completely white, and his face holding grief. Naruto's mind, Naruto walked aimlessly in the darkness. He had no idea where he was or if he was still alive. He could feel a familiarity, but it was vague. After walking for who knows how long, he saw a faint light. Naruto decided to go towards it, and after many hours of walking, he was confronted with a fruit. It looked similar to a peach, but was a deeper violet than a peach, which was pink. However, Naruto knew it wasn't a normal fruit from the massive amounts of chakra within it. The fruit may have been small, the chakra inside of it was near the level of power 666 possessed, maybe even more. Gingerly, Naruto grasped the fruit and pulled it to his face. Contemplation was what happened for the next unknown amount of time before the human grit his teeth and then sank them into the fruit. "It's good to see you again, Naruto. Human world." Tsunade sighed tiredly as she placed a wet cloth on Naruto's forehead. It had been a month since the death of Miko. Thus their faction was without a leader, but they weren't the only one. Leviathan and Asmodeus were killed by 666 while God died, sealing the creature away a week ago. Yet the three factions fought while the yokai faction decided to retreat in fear and confusion. How can this get any worse? Tsunade thought sadly as she removed her hands from Naruto's head and checked his body again. He was fully healed but would not wake up, which is why Tsunade was frightened when his eyes opened and he shot up. "Jesus, don't scare me like that, Naruto," Tsunade shouted as she decked Naruto in the head. Unfazed by the action, Naruto looked at her. "How long was I out?" Tsunade noticed something was off immediately when he did not react to her hitting him like she always did. His eyes were now a slightly faded blue, so faint that it was barely noticeable, but Tsunade could see it. Tsunade explained what was happening and Naruto listened, not interrupting her at all. Naruto stood up and walked out, not even stopping when Tsunade told him to, and he vanished when the tent flaps closed behind him. Lukoa and Wukong had stayed behind to wait for their friend to wake. "Do you think Naruto is going to be all right?" Lukoa asked as she checked her sake for curses. She was always careful when drinking alcohol since her fall from heavenly grace. "I trust him," Wukong stated as he downed his sake. "He is strong. He would not let something like this keep him down for long." Lukoa nodded sadly, her heterochromatic eyes holding intense sadness and worry. "You are right," Naruto said as he opened their tent. "It did not keep me down." "Naruto," both deities shouted when they saw him, giving him a big hug. What took you so long? Wukong asked as he punched Naruto's arm. Are you sure you should be walking? Lukoa asked worriedly. Naruto smiled and nodded before he became serious. I need to ask you two a favor, Naruto stated as he looked at his teammates. Battlefield, the factions were tired. It is what war does when it goes on for years. Michael and Gabriel were starting to worry as the angels too the most casualties out of the three factions. Lucifer and Beelzebub were starting to lose their lust for battle. Kokabeel was excited as the fallen angels lost the least number of warriors, but Azazel was getting tired of war along with Shemhazai. This is it, the heads of each faction thought. The final wave of this war. Right as they started to charge, Naruto, Wukong, and Lukoa appeared in the center of them all, stoic and calm. Who are you? Kokabeel shouted, angered by this group. Everyone could feel Naruto was human, and all knew Wukong and Lukoa, and all thought, what could they want? Naruto took a deep breath. I am Naruto Uzumaki, Naruto stated loudly, all members hearing him. And this war end now. Many warmongers laughed. As if a human could stop any of us. A random devil shouted. Naruto's composure never faltered while Wukong and Lukoa growled, and were about to retaliate, but Naruto held his arm out, halting them. It ends now, Naruto stated before he pointed to the devils. You have lost two Satans. He points to the fallen angels. You have lost many warriors. He pointed to the angels. You lost God. Naruto took another breath. We of the yokai faction lost almost half of our citizens and our leader. A moment of silence let those that wanted peace to realize this. Every faction has lost something, Naruto stated. So, to preserve your lives, end this now with peace. You work together to defeat the Sky Dragons, and due to them the yokai faction was pulled into the war. Now leave and return home. Kokabeel, getting tired of this talk, manifested a large light spear. Enough of this garbage, Kokabeel shouted as he threw the spear at the lowly human scum. Lukoa jumped in front of Naruto, but was shocked when he appeared before her. Naruto's body was engulfed in golden energy, and the spear was repelled back and it dissipated. The energy dimmed and Naruto stood before the factions. He looked like a battle-hardened sage with his clothes being made of golden yellow chakra and black clothes. Behind him were 6 black floating orbs. His eyes were yellow with a fox-slit pupil mixed with a toad bar pupil. His whisker marks covered in solid black bars. 2 of his bangs floated up to look similar to horns. On his forehead was a vertical third eye. It was blood red with a ripple pattern and 9 tomo on the ripples. Those who still thirst for battle may stay and fight us, but be warned, the 12 of us won't hold back, Naruto declared. Ha! You must have lost your mind, Kokabeel shouted as he laughed but stopped when 9 massive figures formed from Naruto's power. A tanuki with 1 tail, a Nakomata with 2 tails, turtle with 3 tails, a monkey with 4 tails, a horse with 5 tails, a slug with 6 tails, a beetle with 6 wings and 1 tail, an ox with 8 tails, and a kitsune with 9 tails. They were constructs of chakra made of Naruto's golden yellow chakra with black markings on their bodies like Naruto's. 1. What is this power? Everyone, including Lukoa and Wukong, thought. The weaker members of every faction collapsed and shook at this power while the stronger ones could feel it and knew he was now as strong as 666, possibly stronger. Nearby, hiding their power, was a small child with long pitch-black hair, silver eyes, and she wore a simple cloth dress. This was Ophis, the infinite dragon god, Ouroboros dragon. He has awakened his power, Ophis thought happily. I can't wait to hold you in my arms, Ashura. I am at full power while all of you can barely stand, let alone fight. Naruto stated, getting chuckles from the tailed beasts. Come on. Let's slaughter them, Naruto. Shikaku laughed sadistically as sand whipped around his ethereal body. Naruto stayed silent as he felt the emotions of the factions. Thanks to Kurama's negative emotion sensing and Senjutsu's sensory power being enhanced by his Byakugan. No, Naruto stated. They are going to leave. As he said this, the angels gathered and returned to heaven. The devils and fallen angels returned to the underworld. Lukoa and Wukong looked at Naruto. What will we do now? Kokuo asked curiously before she and the other tailed beasts were returned to Naruto's body as he powered down. Now we rebuild.
That's all for now. If you enjoyed this video, then please like, share and do comments.